Welcome to the Tearing It Up podcast. I'm your host, Taryn. We'll be tearing it up, tearing it down, and tearing it apart, dissecting all things related to those who deviate from the standard. From leaders of their industry to leaders of mediocrity, and maybe a gear review or two thrown in. We shoot the shit and let the conversations flow, so if that's not your style, this may not be for you. Otherwise, listen in. Hope to light a fire in you somehow.
Hello, everybody. We're back for another Tearing It Up Thursday. Excited today to have Demi Clark with us. So as I've mentioned to you all before, we're expanding our awesome network of women. We're going outside of the traditional outdoor industry. You know, we've talked with a woman from the National Deer Association, Lydia from Osprey. Now we have Demi Clark, who is a tradeswoman, and she's also involved with Osprey. So again, just kind of expanding our horizons to show you all out there that anything for us is possible. Us as women belong anywhere in any place. And my dog is bouncing a ball, so I don't know if you guys can hear him throw this thing around. I don't know where he just dug this toy out of the bin that hasn't been around for months, but he found it now. Anyways, while I wrangle him in, I'm going to turn it to you, Demi, to let us know just where you're at as you're recording today physically in the world, and just a little bit about what you are doing today, what your kind of what your title would be, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of them. I'm in the Carolinas, so I'm on the East Coast. So it's a little bit later for me than you all, but where I am in the world, I'm a new empty nester. I have two daughters who are, one is a freshman in college, the other is a junior who I just dropped off in Barcelona. Not a bad gig for her right now in Spain. I'd go back in a heartbeat, but where am I is I've been a world traveler my whole life. I started my career in the trades coming out of college after the tech boom busted. I'm a Gen Xer, feral Gen Xer. And went into trades pretty early on and rose up the ranks in the number one home builder in the country, and was one of 7 out of 7,000 who were women that were in high executive leadership back in 2017. And I just didn't, it was a great company, but I wasn't moving the needle enough. And I realized after being Title IX in sports and being a huge sports person, and also a marathoner and an active Ironman and doing all these crazy climbs around the country, what do I need to do to just punch up the needle moving for my own impact by the time I, whatever age I turn to dust? And I think that's most of us in my generation right now. I just turned 48. I'm looking at all kinds of crazy stuff to do this year. And I'm always up in the ante to say, what is it to get back, both for my daughters and then just generationally, those who are, coming behind me in the ranks of saying, I'm trying to get into leadership, or I'm trying to go climb more and have diversity and inclusion on the mountaintops, or in running, or in women's sports. And it just still bugs the bleep out of me. I won't cuss today, but I'm a huge cusser. That we just, for me, it's been 25 years and the needle has barely moved in a lot of our industries, in sports equity, in terms of women getting the money that they deserve as compared to the men, in sponsorships and endorsement deals and all the things. And so right now, the bottom line is, between my TEDx speaking, me in the trades getting advocacy as welding is STEM. I've got my varsity welding shirt on, and really getting onboard ramps to start. And then also intersectionality with access and community with women's sports. There's a lot of these movements that are coming together. So I'm kind of at the bleeding edge of all of it, of putting things like welding and women's sports into areas where they're not being talked about. So whether that's the TEDx community, and I'm about to go on stage again in April to talk just about this topic, or in places that it's just, it's not your typical kind of construction trades group. Wherever we can talk about it. If I'm on a mountaintop climbing, because I've done the 6-star marathon, so I've gotten my 6-star medal. I've been on 5 summits with Woe Travel and others, so Kilimanjaro to W Trek in Chile and Patagonia and Salkantay Trail and Iceland, and doing Cotopaxi this year. So it's wherever it's going to be, I'm going to be at the bleeding edge of it on behalf of women. So I know we talked about, and then I promise this is not a soundbite. I feel like I'm going on for 5 minutes. We talked about what is your brand? What is your message? I think it's this year of intersectionality of all that, of what is your brand? Does it have to be one thing, or can we intersect all these things? And me, after 25 years, and now that I'm really on the speaking circuit, people are hiring me because I can put all those things together rather than saying you have to be in one of those silos.
Yes. I love all of that. And I love that you just brought that up too, because that's something that we talk about often kind of on the podcast. I just talked about it a bit too with Lydia of Osprey and like all her many different hats that like to this day we're still being told like, you know, niche down, pick your lane. And there's a big difference between kind of like staying in a lane that you're familiar with or no versus like you can still be in a lot of lanes at the same time. Like, you know, if you don't know anything about this or that, don't go speak on it like you're an expert, but you can certainly go learn more about it and you can wear several different kinds of hats and you can be great at them all, good at them all, or you can just be interested in them all. You don't have to be trying to be like a master of every single thing. And we're multifaceted. Again, something we say almost every episode. So it's fine if we have several different ideas, jobs, things like that. And it's also only our business of what we're putting together for life. So what's it to you if I'm doing 500 things and only, you know, 2 of them are making money? If I'm paying my bills or even if I'm barely paying my bills, that's my business. Like it's what
Yeah,
I want
yeah,
to do. So guess what? I'm going to do it until I can't and, you know, figure it out. And that is the point, again, of this podcast. Mission of this podcast is to show people that there is not one way to do things. And you can create your own path by kind of stitching things together. And so talking to people like you is just so inspiring to remind us out there that like, wow, you would think these two topics maybe don't have anything to do with each other. You don't often hear that like this like badass welding woman is also a badass like mountain climber, a marathoner, even though many of them are, we just don't see past these like first like impressions or surface level things we see. He's like, oh, there's someone in the trades. That's all they do. They're a blue collar person, work 9 to 5 or, you know, whatever, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. They don't have time to go do anything else. But yeah, in their downtime, no, they are being active and in the outdoors. And we just section everything off. Like they do this and that's it. It's like, nope,
yeah.
you can
It's a
do
lot of
multiple things.
it's a lot of box fitting. And P.S. I went to Yale, so you know, like this is
Wow.
not the typical person. But I mean, welcome to women. I think we're high achievers because we're forced to be high achievers, right? Of like, go get to what you're saying earlier. Go become a SME, a subject matter expert in whatever the thing is. And so there's that's pushed on us. But and I'm seeing that generationally, which is what makes me mad. It's like, oh, it's one to be like pushed on what we used to call more of the queen bees. The ones that went before me were, my gosh, my grandmother, you know, and then also others. My grandmother was one of the first Rosies. I can't even imagine the pressure they were under. And also, you know, just the stigmatization, the racism, depending on what your identity was. You can be a queen bee and be like, yeah, I want to be the only one. It is the thing. But like, I was raised by the few females that were ahead of me to be like, you know, learn your place, do all the things right, all the things. So for my generation coming through, the more Gen X women, I think we are much more, we try to turn around and like pull others with us. And again, like, it's frustrating that the same messaging that we got 25 years ago when we were in our early 20s is still being pushed at you all. And I'm projecting at your ages. But, you know, Gen Z, it drives me nuts to see that being projected at my daughters and being like, nothing has changed. Right?
Yeah.
We're supposed to do all the perfectness, but then at the same time, be multifaceted, go learn all the things, be interesting and interested. And then, like, I guess at this age, I can say, like, I don't give two foxes what people think. I'm not 22 years old where I have to be like beholden to a boss or this career that's in front of me and all these choices. I can tell women, like, go do all the things. There is no, I was so unpopular early on because I was always interested in all these things. And now I can put that patchwork quilt together to say, like, this is what I speak about when I get on stages, especially to women, is to say, like, I don't care what people tell you. Like, if this is something you're interested in, I love what you said about niche down. Like, when people try to get you to niche down, it's usually about them. I don't care what your gender is. 9 times out of 10, it's women that are doing it. It's not men that are like, oh, that's, I get this a lot where people are like, oh, you're a badass, or you know, did whatever, a Kilimanjaro, or you did this in welding, or you did whatever. it's usually followed with like a comma, but I can't do those things. And I'm like, you can do whatever you want. This is your life to choose. Again, not to get like all inspirational and say like, you're going to be dust. What are you going to do? But you really are. Like, if it is, and that's the phase that I'm in right now. It's like, if I'm interested in something, I'm going to go do it. If I want to put my money into some place, say I want to travel more, I will take something away somewhere else and say like, you know what, this is my income, or I will go get a side gig. So we just have to stop giving these ridiculous mixed messages of saying like, go side gig yourself to death, but then, niche down.
Yeah.
Well, let's have multiple revenue streams because it's cool. But then also I think it's smart. I think it's a great thing. You should be able to go do a whole lot of different things. And some of them aren't going to pan out, but you're interested and you just learned more about it. And others are going to create revenue for yourself. I think that's brilliant for the next generations, is to say, rather than taking this linear path that so many of us had to take the generations before you, now you can. But then you can't penalize them for those choices to side gig and not niche down. You know what I mean? So like, I just think it's ridiculous.
No, absolutely. And I love, there's a lot of talk out there trying to get out of the hustle culture, where the hustle culture was known, I feel like, as those side gigs, always doing something. And it's like, but you can kind of rewrite that narrative where it's not necessarily like a hustle culture, but like, I've got the time, maybe I can split my time to do these different revenue things, because also, as we've known, so Amber and I are 36, 37, millennials, we've seen all the shit that you've seen as far as like crash here, like just the instability in the work economy, no matter like what role you've been in. I mean, the outdoor industry, there's been layoffs all over. REI just laid off like 400 some people because they just nixed their outdoor experience sector of the company. So you're seeing it everywhere. And since 2008, with the housing crisis and the crash there, and I've always known and thought, and my dad had told me, like, basically, like, nothing is kind of guaranteed for you. He was like, I don't know what you want to do, but like, I'll support you where I can, because I honestly don't know if you guys will have Social Security or any of these things that have been promised to you, these things that were promised to us. And so with multiple streams of revenue, rather than thinking of it as like hustling, it's just like, no, I just have options, because and not in like the fear way of like, well, in case this crash and burns over here, I've got this, but like in just I like to do it both. And it does offer a different kind of security because I have something over here. Or being in like the freelance world that I'm in now, it's like, or just working seasonally, things come and go. So I'm busier over here at one time of the year and busier over here at another time of the year. So that's the kind of seesaw that I play. It's not just all about hustle. I always have to, anything I'm doing has to be making a buck, because if y'all know, which a lot of you out there do, a lot of what I'm doing ain't making a buck. So it's like, it's just what I want to, where I want to be, and there it can grow into other things. But again, it's not necessarily just like hustle side gig, but a way to kind of have extra security during different seasons of life and the crazy ass world that we live in.
Well, I don't think, I don't know where the whole hustle culture thing, I think it goes hand in hand with self-care, right? And I think we really twisted that too, personally, is to say, I don't know, I've never not worked hard. I especially if you're talking about tradespeople too. I mean, they're the creators of hustle culture. Like, if you got to get up and do what you were saying, like 4 a.m., 6 a.m., third shift, sometimes do the things. There's a lot of pride in that, and there's not always the money. But then when you look at entrepreneurs, I've been in that culture too of fintech, startup entrepreneurs, they could lose everything they've ever had. So if they don't hustle, or they don't wake up, just like you were talking to Lydia, she's got to make 100 phone calls a day, or be reaching out to people on LinkedIn and find the investors, find the women, find this, find that. Like, there's only so much time for self-care. So it's really, to me, I don't want to say anything demeaning to either side of that. You can fall on whatever side of the coin you want to on it. I look at it as two things that have been pretty constant in my life is two concepts. One was grit, the old Angela Duckworth TEDx, which it's that whole Teddy Roosevelt man in the arena, like person in the arena, get back in the arena. Every great mentor in my life has always said, like, go try it, go fail at it, or go succeed at it, dust yourself off, get back on the horse. I mean, I literally had my best mentor, male boss, regional president at DR Horton, who would say, like, get back on the horse, like constantly. He would say, go dig the ditch. So do the work that nobody else wants to do, dirty stuff. Euphemism there, of saying like whatever the dirty thing is, it's the jobs that nobody else wants to do, whether that's a true, trade job, or that's we're getting into AI and now people are like, oh, what's being replaced? Is it really being replaced, or is it stuff that we should have, mastered for us so that we can go do other things? And I guess that concept plus Blue Ocean Strategy, which is another just amazing, timeless book, of saying, hey, do you want to fight in the red ocean, or do you want to go look at concepts where there's blue ocean and people are afraid to go there? They don't want to necessarily hoist the sail to go there, but the ones that do, there's a lot of reward to that. Or you fail and you try again and you do the thing. So I look at it more of those two things rather than hustle culture. It's like, who's taking chances? And that's going to take time. Sorry that you can't sleep 12 hours a day. Like, if that's anti-hustle culture, like, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's not self-care to me. I love to sleep at 48, and I never knew. I used to be somebody that would like go to bed at 11, wake up at 5, like Steve Jobs style. I can't wait to go to bed at like 9 p.m. But that's like older me, who is just like, I love to put on like the skincare stuff because the wrinkles are here. And then I like to go to sleep. So, but I'm up at like 5 just because that's what old people do. But, I just think it's all in how you want to be projected at and how much noise you want to listen to, or just say, I do GAF. I'm going to go do what I'm going to do. And you can respect that, or you can judge it. And I think the people that have time to judge that are the ones that they want to be doing what you're doing. End of the day, and failure or not, right? Whether you're making money or not, they still want to be doing, and they wish they had that kind of courage to do it. So I don't want to belittle those people. I just want to say, like, when you're apt to say, like, oh, look at that failure, or we do it on social media all day, or looking at people that are celebrities in wildfires losing their houses right now, and it's like, oh, well, they're a celebrity. They still have uninsured property that they've earned money, so like, judge, or do we have to just be like, how can we stay in our own, we were talking about lanes, like stay in our own lane on judging other people, but take your chances. So,
well, yeah, I mean, because it's all relative, right? Sure, it's easy to look at someone and say, like, or it feels easy to look at them and say, oh, they have all the money in the world, they can afford to lose that or something. It's like, well, not when their cost of living or anything is that much higher. And again, it's like, not always income that's going to come back to them just because they made a bunch of money at some point. They might not be working anymore or have young families, and it's the memories and things, like important things of sentiment and value as well. Like, their house could mean as much to them and the things in it as yours does as well. Like, it's just,
I mean, at
you
the
just
end of the
never
day,
know.
Loss, right? I mean, this is a human issue. This has nothing to do with what someone makes or doesn't make. Like, and that's what I want moving forward for everybody generationally. Again, like, I don't know why I'm in such a theme right now of saying, like, I don't want to leave this place for my daughters and everybody else, like, not being human. And I think that's what the biggest opportunity we have is to get back to being human, and not off of AI and social media. I think there's a lot of positives to all of these things, but we just have, for things like these disasters, like the human side, it's getting a little ugly to me, of like the things that we decide to say or do or not do. But everybody's human. I don't care where you're from. So outdoors equalizes us with that. I've loved that as part of my journey, and the people I've been able to meet and or see, and that's been brought into the business community for me too. So it's just one big world that's spinning, and we're trying to like figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, speaking of kind of the outdoors and connecting that and how it connects all of us, I'm curious how and where kind of everything started for you. You mentioned your grandma too, being one of the first Rosies. So it seems like all of this, like the outdoors, the trades and things, were built into you at a young age. Did they all come in kind of at the same time? Was your whole family involved in both worlds, or was there like more of a start to one than the other?
Yeah, great question. I had my grandmother, and I just now am realizing how lucky I was to have this super spitfire redhead. Hers wasn't out of a bottle. Mine is, especially now, gray hair, but she was amazing from day one. And literally, that was World War II. She was getting pressured from her dad, my great grandfather in Alexandria, Virginia, to come home. She had been modeling in New York, actually, and it was 1942. She didn't really want to come home to have the marriage conversation or to join a secretarial pool. She was already kind of I want to be on the outlying of the world and figure it out. And so she was in a train station and saw the Marine Corps recruiting station and just marched right up and said, 1, do you take women? 2, do I have to wear a skirt? If it's yes to number 1 and no to number 2, I'll go for it. And she didn't sign up right there and go off. She went home and had the conversation, but she ultimately did it and was one of the first female Rosies. Now she was just honored in the Rosie the River Trust in California. So she has a banner there that will be part of a permanent exhibit for all Rosies. And she's passed on, but we're super proud of her and what she did. She was a sergeant in the Marines. Just one of the many who 15 million women, took up pails while men were gone in World War II and did the thing. And that's kind of what drives me nuts right now about the trades is it took a war. So that was pretty significant, to get that many women involved into the trades, but it happened and it was possible. So how on earth do we fast forward, to now from 1942, 43 to now in 2025, and we're at 3% women welders. We went backwards a lot. And it was a myriad of things. So, that's a big piece of my life. But I also had a dad who was an Army Ranger, and I had an older brother, and I was never there was never this gender thing. There was just get in the workshop and let's build Pinewood Derby cars with your brother. He's got Boy Scouts to do. And I was soldering at 5 years old,
Awesome.
Again, us feral Gen Xers that were come home when the lights go on outside and hopefully you won't get, abducted or whatever. It just was a different time. Parents, there wasn't as much stranger danger and a lot of helicoptering. It was just more we're in the workshop. Pick up a power tool at age 6. Safely. My dad wasn't crazy, but it was just a little more rugged. And I got to grow up with that too. And then I was also a sports kid. So I was always the only girl on my team. I was Title IX sports in the 80s. And you have to be pretty tough with that and dust yourself off and get back up. And I love that. All the guys that I was on teams with, amazing. They were never push you down. We had to work a little harder. My thing was always stronger, faster, cleaner, faster, stronger, better was always my motto. It was whatever you do. And I took that into the trades. It was a lot of burnout from that. But at the same time, it was most women from my generation were just we got to be cleaner, faster, stronger, better if we're going to make the impact, stay in the whatever and keep going. But it took me until I had always wanted to climb Kili. I started making these vision boards back in 2010, and now I have them all, and it's crazy what I'm telling you, whatever you want to call it, vision boarding, manifesting, all the things, write it down, I promise you, and then keep taking a step towards it, because I've had so many things either come to fruition or literally something better. It was something else was supposed to happen in that lane, so it wasn't ever something that was just flat out didn't happen. It was just something cooler came along that was a little bit of a fork in the road. But that was one of them. I just randomly wrote that down. I was I'm going to climb Kilimanjaro. And back then it wasn't a thing. Now I feel it's really a thing. And there it was 9 years later. I had this opportunity through Woe Travel, which definitely should talk to Allison, who's one of the CEO and co-founder of Woe Travel, which is Women High on Adventure. All women trips, very inclusive, also gives back to the planet everywhere they go, and partners with local women-faced organizations to be the guides. A lot of discrepancy or not parity there. Depending, Kili has maybe 1 to 2 female guides versus 20 to 30 men who go through a very heavy certification process, but it's also culturally kind of a thing that we can certainly unpack. But anyway, so that's what made me do it in 2019. It was right before the pandemic, and I just caught the bug. I was on the mountain with 22 other women, and then a bunch of male guides who were super, they were all Maasai warriors and from that culture, which is very, very masculine. But they were the ones that, for all these alpha females that were on the mountain, it takes a lot for you to fly 22 hours away and multiple countries and just do the thing for 9 to 12 days. And it's pretty rugged to get up there to 20,000 feet and exhaustingly cold. And you're some at night, you're at midnight. The wind is flapping your tent where you're what the hell am I doing? What am I doing here? This is not sitting on a beach. But I think that was the most impactful thing is these guys again, these kind of warrior-based mentality who were the first ones to tell all these type A women, like, you have to listen to me. I'm not trying to control you. I'm not trying to be alpha over you, but you could die. You could die from a variety of things. And if we're like this and you trust me and I trust you, we're making this. And it was like this huge cultural shift for me to men. I didn't look at them as competition. I saw them as like, no, I got to trust them. And I actually use that a lot working with male CEOs and C-suite men right now who are like, how do I be an ally to women? I mean, what does that really mean? Or a sponsor? And I tell that story of saying like, honestly, it's your time. And it's doing a lot of behind the scenes work, not getting on a panel and talking about it because it does nothing for us. It's a lot of just saying like, I'm at your beck and call. What do you need from me? What room do you need to be in? What skills do you need? How can I give up like my subject matter expertise? And I have very strong male mentors in my life right now who do that very thing. And they hate it when I talk about them on LinkedIn. They don't even want me saying their names because they're like, you've helped me get to my place, but they're organically doing it. So the more I can talk about that kind of thing, I'm just hopeful because I mean, I can be 3% women in welding and go talk to women all day. It does absolutely nothing. I have to get to the 97% men to say like, how can you help here? Like, how can you help? You hold the keys to the kingdom. So until I can get you to really figure out the strategy on how to change this, the 3% can't stand up and do it themselves, So it's kind of like that could be on the mountain, or that could be running, or that could be in trades, or that could just be women in male-dominated industries in general. Like Lydia going for financing. There's maybe 8% of the financing goes to women in startups. So it's just there's so many areas, right?
Yeah. Even in the home, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When we talk about the housework piece, I mean, I'm a 50-50 house for sure. My husband has always been on the deal when I'm, traipsing around the world or doing all the things we were talking about this morning. Like, here we are, empty nesters, and I've done all this stuff like while my kids were growing up. And I was very intentional about that. And when I was away, they would know what mom was doing and be proud of that, and not saying like it was this abundance versus scarcity. Everyone else would make it about that of like, oh, who's taking care of your kids? And it's like I'm lucky to have a partner.
Yes.
And also it was by design. We have talked about this and like it's 50-50. You do this when I'm here, I do this when you're here, but it's not like I'm going to guilt trip you for being away. Society guilt trips women for traveling while they're working. And again, that's another one that has not changed. And I'm just like, why do we keep doing this to ourselves? Why is it happening when there's much more parity in the world? I hear that from construction, especially women in construction all day who are kind of traveling and doing the sales thing or trade shows. Still get it. They still get it. Like, who's taking care of kids? And I would always throw that back when I was on the road. I'd be like, well, who's taking care of yours?
Yeah.
You got you're a guy. Like, I'm just really going to say that. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. Like, if you ask me, I'm going to ask you. Is it your wife? Are you married to, like, is it a cis gender relationship? Like, why? And then why do you feel like you can ask? So that kind of stuff still baffles me a bit.
Absolutely. I feel like you mentioned there and at the beginning of how there's so many things that haven't changed in the last 25 years. That is insane to think about. Like, you'll look at how far things have come and you're like, oh, wow, look at that. When I was a kid, like it wasn't that way. And there's so many more women out here or whatever. And then all of a sudden, like, just on the other side, you're like, wait, it hasn't changed that much, though, when you think about the actual like percentage it's changed in that amount of time. You're like, it's crazy how long it takes, or that people still ask like, who's taking care of your kids? Like, again, why does it matter? You don't even know my like background in life. Like, am I married? Do I have kids? Like, what's my situation at home? Maybe we have like split custody like, why does it matter? Like you said, like the male counterparts aren't getting asked that every time they're on a business trip. So what does it even matter? The same thing bothers me still to this day of like, anytime a woman decides to not drink or is feeling a certain way or whatever, it's like, oh, are you pregnant? Like, fucking no. And if I was, I'd tell you. Like, I don't need to be asked like this question, like, because that's something that, as we all know too, that you don't come out and just talk about until you're ready to, for many different reasons. That it's like, why does our society always have to go to that with women? Like, it always goes back to these old stories, and it's mind-boggling. But
well, and then when you look at, like not to take it to a kind of like real tangential place, but I'm watching this Blake Lively thing kind of play out too. And I don't want to keep it entertainment. I think you could literally put this in any industry of how women are going to be in the center of it either way, whether it's a smear campaign, which is really deeply disturbing to me. But I mean, I think we probably should all know that that's probably been going on for a lot longer than we think. But then it's usually the women are in the center of it. Like somehow the guys can kind of still come out somewhat unscathed, but it's still the women that get this. And so I don't want this to be like this really downer podcast. It's more of like, we really need to analyze, like for women, take the pressure off. Like I have no problem. I don't want to say like flicking it back because it's just as many equal parts women as men who will say stuff to you, right? So it's not all guys that will say kind of like random stuff like you're talking about of like, oh, well, are you pregnant? Like, why does this stuff blurt out of people still? Like it's not a social norm thing. But, you know, don't accept certain behaviors. I tell my daughters that all the time. Get a new room. You know, if that's not your room, you might have to sacrifice that job or that thing or that hobby that you really like. But get out of the room. Like, I don't have time anymore. And maybe it took me to 48 to learning. Like, I don't know. I hope I live till I'm 110, thanks to all the cool stuff that's in the world technology-wise to help us stay healthy. I still eat like trash, but, you know, like I want to live a long time, but I don't know what that number is. None of us do, right? So in the time that I have left, I do not have time for just stupid crap. I mean, I just don't. So if you're going to throw it at me, I don't have the tolerance anymore. Like I will be polite when I have to be polite, especially in the South. It's always a struggle for me because people are like way too polite. Sometimes I'm just like, could you be real with this? Like, no, like there's no y'all on this one. This is a like, let's stand up for this person. Because it's couched in so much like paradigms and like old history and whatever. There's a time and a place to not be silent and to stand up. And especially in the next 4 years for me, like I definitely am there on behalf of my kids and on behalf of women. I'm ready to, I don't want to say call people out, but I will comfortably make you uncomfortable when I need to, because I'm just not going to tolerate certain things that when I was in my 20s, I thought I had to be status quo. So if there's nothing else I can pass on, it's that women in this next generation have this empowered feeling and this confidence to do that. Because there's no like, hey, just stay low, do the learning on this one and maybe be quiet. No, I don't care if you're 10 or you're 82. I think that was the moxie that my grandmother had that was not popular at the time, to be like, I'm going to do it or I'm not. Or I'm going to accept this or I'm not. And then for men, like, don't be threatened by that. The men I surround myself right now with are men who are completely unthreatened and understanding what it's taking to shut up and listen. And then to help women truly get in the room and progress. And then they have that ripple effect on others. So I think it's everybody, you know, between men and women and however you identify, so that I don't leave anybody out. It's up to all of us. But like it is disturbing to me to see that women are still the target. And I don't know why. I cannot understand that part.
I know it's super frustrating. We're half the population and at times to just get treated like we're still less than like another human. And for anyone in any kind of minority for any human to feel less than another human is just insane that feeling is ever put on you. And I think it's beautiful that, you know, you saying like, okay, being at an older age, that's where you're like in the I don't give a fuck mode, but teaching the younger generation like to get there at an earlier age, like use your voice now. Like we don't need to wait until we're older and like, you know, did this or did that and kind of don't care what people think. Like we need to move through this world from the beginning like that, just as like our counterparts do. And that's part of the thing is like, and yes, we just think differently. We're wired differently. So it can be a little bit harder for women or other minority groups too to find their voices because of, again, society and where we've been stuffed into these little pockets. But just that is one thing with like coaching, wrestling, we only have a couple girls on the team, but it's like, God, watching this generation and I'm like, wow, you're still feeling and saying these things that like, you know, girls felt when I was in high school. And, you know, being removed from it, you kind of sometimes just hope that magically, there has been these major changes because we do see changes, but we still see the things that are like, nope, you're still going through these same struggles. And that's where it reminds me, like, it's because like we're still hardwired a little bit differently, and society still pushes this story down our throats. But one of the girls on the team, she is like in the, I forget what they call it. It's not ROTC, but it's like the Navy side of that. And so she's learning how to fly planes. She's welding. They have welding in this school. And I'm like, this is amazing, because here are the things where I think, it's changing, because you're a high school 16-year-old girl taking welding in school, learning to fly planes, doing this amazing, amazing things that seems like it's more prevalent than even when I was younger. But then again, you're over here like afraid to like, do this or that with the boys or in front of the boys, like afraid to kind of speak up. So it's just interesting seeing the paradoxes that still exist, and trying to just teach these younger girls to use their voice now. It's like there's no reason we need to wait until we're older, although it could be just because we feel like we won't be respected at all at a younger age, because people will say things like, oh, well, you just don't know yet. And it's like, I don't have to know like this or that to speak my opinion. Like,
Yeah.
I can still say how I'm feeling.
Yeah, it's a lot of it for me is what we can impart is onboard ramps. A big part of my life is onboard ramps, and whatever the industry is or the space and access. My work with Osprey and partnerships is trying to involve manufacturers and these partners that can come on and brands that can come on and say, listen, this isn't money necessarily. This is how do we elevate women's voices and then also give them access to get brand promotion, but also like tell a bigger story. And that's so powerful for women, because we feel deeply about the brands that we like or we use or the things we want to learn, right? We're deeply curious. And so the thing that I have a 10-year-old niece who she loves Alex Morgan. She's a crazy soccer player, cried her eyes out when Alex retired last year, and is just obsessed. And she loves to do all the things, but she also loves to do little tiny, what are those little they're like the things you get out of the vending machine that you put the food together. It's like the tiny food bites and stuff.
Yes.
And I don't want to call that girly. It's not. But she loves the little food things that take a lot of detail and little puzzles. And then she loves pink. And so like for her, I look at Hannah and I'm just like, I want her to have all the choices in the world, just like you're talking about the girls in high school, to always be curious, ask all the questions, have the confidence to ask those questions, which is a whole nother topic to unpack. But then also have the access to the onboard ramps, which I am hopeful for this next generation that, you don't have to go to CTE school to get welding. If we can help get it into after school programs with STEM, which they're growing up with STEM. Welding is STEM. Why did we take power drills out? It was always STEM. It was technology education when I was in Votech in high school. And I loved drill presses, but suddenly you took the tech out of it when the Google generation came. And again, like we need an hour to unpack that piece. And the pendulum just swung. So now we have the opportunity for a pendulum to swing back. They do have access to it along, and in a lot of these agricultural communities, now we need it in more of the urban areas to say, do you want to take a welding class? It doesn't mean you have to be a welder. It just means you want to get into that. That's actually getting into engineering. Maybe you want to be an engineer that is taking us off to space. And that was through welding that started. So don't stigmatize these kids for saying, I'm curious about things. Let's give them access to it and then choice to do it. And then don't stigmatize the choices that they make. Because as long as we can give them access, or like women in sports, as long as we give them access to every sport they want to play, I love to see flag football. That's equalizing everything in football right now, because women are crushing it. And it's starting to come up, and the NFL is starting to really get to it. So it all comes back to access points. And I think that's going to solve everything, or I mean, not solve everything. This next generation gets to be the one that wrestles with how much does AI come in and skills-based labor. And I think that's the opportunity for the trades to get back in, and for anything like outdoors, is that let's let AI solve all the stuff that has been keeping us from, an intelligent population doing things that matter. And then the skills-based labor is not going to go away. I mean, there's only so many robots and cobots that we're going to get to build houses and to weld bridges and things of that nature. And P.S., that could be a job too, that someone is standing behind and is an engineer driving that train. So it's not taking someone's job. It's just making it in a different lens. But then take that for all the learning that AI can bring to us of taking the mundane stuff out of the way. And then I think the focus can come back. And this is what I talk about in the trades a lot. Is like, we have all the opportunity in the world to be on a soapbox talking about skills-based labor, because that can't be replaced for a long time. I'm not saying every job, but I'm saying things like welding, they will still need that. And then they can upskill into things like laser welding and the next generation of it, like cobots and robots. It's a long career they can have. So why wouldn't we? So I think the pendulum has the potential to swing back if we choose to create those access points and onboard ramps. So I'm hopeful at that. But I mean, for the wrestling thing, I think that's more of a destigmatization. The access point is there. You're doing a great job of it. But until we can say, hey, these high schoolers can say it's acceptable, and I just think that I don't know if we'll ever change that, unfortunately, right? You go through this high school swing of, what's cool, what's not cool, and that changes. But it's just an interesting thing to watch.
It is. It's really interesting to watch and see. And again, just because like we're on that side of like feeling we should be so much further. And in some points we are. But again, when you look at the percent of how long it took to get just to this point, it's like, oh man, sometimes it is a little bit disencouraging. You're like, oh God, why do we have to keep fighting the fight? Like, when is this fight going to end? And it feels like it never will, especially in the male dominated areas of trades and certain sports and certain like job titles and things. But like we gotta just keep forging forward and connecting with each other. So I was listening to a podcast the other day, this woman who has a financial podcast, and she mentioned how really in her comments the people who kind of talk the most shit to her and put her down are other women, and how we can kind of tear each other down so hard. And where does that come from? Why are we the ones to tear each other down so hard? And obviously, again, so much to unpack in that. But I think there's a lot of times still that I have to stop and think about things just because of how, we were taught to kind of be like, there's only room for one. I think it all comes down to, a lot of it comes down to that scarcity mindset. Like, I can be the only like woman in the room doing this or that. And we have to know now that, like, no, there's not only room for one, there's room for all of us, especially if we are helping each other build up and finding those men in the areas that are supportive of us. There's plenty of men out there who are supportive of women, and like all the mentors you have are trying to find ways to help you further yourself and get other women involved. But we certainly cannot be tearing each other down in any of the arenas. If it's not for you, it's not for you. You don't have to tear the woman down doing it. Like, why on earth? Like, if I don't want to be a welder, I'm not going to be like, no woman should be doing this. Like, it's just so pointless to me. I don't get that mentality at all. And it's something we have to fight. And I've definitely certain parts of the world and country and things that have just other different beliefs. You can't make people believe what you believe. And you kind of have to try to figure out how to shut off the noise, put your blinders on, and keep going forward. But again, it can be very, very tiresome to do that. And again, by having these conversations, that's what I'm hoping to give the people out there listening, that you might feel like you're just banging your head against a brick wall, but there are other people out there who believe in you, support you, and doing the thing that you're trying to do or in a similar lane. So like, just keep going forward. And I think too, I wanted to bring up, like, we talked about bringing back like welding and those kinds of things in schools and giving the access to the younger generation, while also our older generation, like us. I mean, we're all at a point in life that we still want to try new things. And yeah, it can be scarier as you're older, but like, I have been getting a little bit stir crazy with what I've been doing for work and things. Like, I need to use my freaking hands. I just want to build something. I was telling my boyfriend the other day, I'm like, I'm going to try it. Like, we're trying to build a house someday, like hopefully in the very near future. We've just been sitting on our property, and I'm like, I want to be able to do the things myself. Like, I want to be able to fix the things myself. And sure, there's some things I can, but I'm like, I don't learn just on YouTube. What am I going to go do? Buy a bunch of nails and boards and watch YouTube and build something. Like, sure, I could, but that's not how I personally learn. Like, I'm like, I'm going to call up your buddy and see if I can like go work for him this summer a couple days a week and learn how to build houses, because that's how I learned. And so for any of us, like older, I feel like we need to seek some things and opportunities out that way too. Like, I want to learn how to weld. Where can I find a welding class for an adult woman, you know? So access across the board, I think, is super important, but you're doing things like that. You're bringing those things into the world. And I think that's just absolutely amazing. And again, a reminder that just because we might be in our 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, we can still try new things. So is there anything that you can, like places you can recommend to the women out there who are older in life that maybe want to get into, learn a trade, like where they can go, how they can connect with others?
1,000,000%. You hit the nail on the head, pun intended, of saying like you have a buddy to call and say, hey, and you're more fearless than some maybe, but it just takes curiosity, right? So I don't want people to think, again, I talk about so much when I'm speaking, especially with women, is like there's not this category of fearless women and not fearless women. It's just saying like, how can we facilitate your curiosity and then give you places for your onboard ramp to do that thing, right? If it's YouTube or it's social media or it's an actual physical place, you called up a buddy or you're planning on calling up a buddy. If you're curious about X, and I'll stick with welding for now because trades is bigger. There's multiple trade organizations. Whatever the thing is that you want to do, go Google it, and I'll guarantee you it'll be a level of trade organizations. And it doesn't have to be women focused. Start with whatever trade organization that is supposed to tell you where to start. If they're a good trade org, then they're going to say, like, here are a lot of onboard ramps that you could start with. And you don't have to go back to school and get a 4-year degree or 2-year associates or go to community college necessarily. I always say start with your makerspace. Almost every city in America has a makerspace. They usually have welding equipment. Sometimes they don't, but I'm talking to a lot of them that do. I'm starting to network with more of them to say like, hey, maybe there is a varsity welding club I can start, and I want to start kit-based. So it's not somebody saying like, I want to learn to weld, and it's like, there's 4 processes of welding. What do you really want to do for your end game? Is it make a barbecue pit? Is it to weld a bridge? Is it to take something up into space and be TIG welding? Is it to, repair farm equipment? A lot of like qualifying questions on that one. So rather than I'm coming up with this in a concept that's beta here in my backyard of saying varsity welding club, you've got a kit. It's a couple of things you can learn to make, and you win with the torch because you always want to win with whatever that thing is that you're learning. And that keeps them going, right? If you hate it and you lose, you lose proverbially, you're not going to want to keep doing something. Maybe that's the athletic me that's talking, but it's defeating if you're like, I can't even run a bead, so I hate welding. I don't want to do this again. I always had great mentors that I surrounded myself with that were good teachers who wanted me to win. So even when you have those terrible beads or that terrible project or failing on a test, a weld test, then you can start over and be like, yeah, I still love this. I just got to practice more. I got to do this, or I got to find this skill. I think starting with, again, like Google the thing, it is that simple, and then find the trade orgs and people you can reach out to, and like look at the people that are, I don't want to say influencers, I hate that term, but people that are subject matter experts. The good ones will reach back out to you. They did for me. The ones that didn't, I kept receipts, and I still know them. I see them on panels, and I'm just like, we know each other. You never emailed me back when I asked you about welding. You thought I was nobody. But now I'm on big stuff, so like I kept the receipts. But I'm just saying that more of like, keep receipts in your life because you know the good people that are going to stand behind you that you can keep going back to, right? As okay, she was a resource for me. I don't have any problem reaching out to her on LinkedIn or email or find a website or however I can get to her on Instagram or him. The good people that want to see you win are going to get back to you, even if it takes some time, if they're busy people. But I would say those 2 things, like, 1, find the thing, Google the thing, and then find what the subject matter experts are, or find the trade orgs or the org that is kind of that unbiased umbrella that can help you out to find the places in your local area. Try a makerspace because you can learn so many things through your local makerspace. It's a 501c3, so you're always supporting good people, and you're connecting with a lot of tradespeople that way. So you can get jobs off of that, or you can do side gigs, or you can learn more skills, or like you're saying, you could probably meet GCs who are like, yeah, absolutely, come under my wing. Maybe you want to sit for your GC license in California. I don't know. But maybe you just want to get the skill to do the thing and take it however far your journey is. And just always be relentless in asking questions with people that will listen to you. And like I said, the good people will respond back to you and be non-judgmental and find other resources if they're not the person for you. I will always say that, to your population that's listening to this, if there's something I can help you with, reach out in any way you can possibly do it. I'll find the person for you, or maybe I am the person, because I think it's just the duty of women to do that for each other. But I think that's the duty of humans, ultimately.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you brought up the makerspace, because there is a makerspace here in Truckee, and I mean, I follow them and I see a lot of things, but it's a lot more. Well, I need to look more into it, but what exactly they do, because the things that I see pop up are things I'd be interested in, but not quite as like down and dirty as like I want to get. But that doesn't mean it's not available, or like if I have an interest in it, and that's something we talk about all the time when we have like outdoor industry apparel people on, of, hey, how do you get your favorite apparel brand in your favorite store in town? Well, you say, hey, I love this. I want to, I love this brand, bring it up to the owner of the store or someone in the store, and then maybe they'll bring it in. So same thing in like the makerspace, I'm going to research it a bit. And if they don't offer any kind of like welding type thing, then maybe I can say, hey, I know this woman who could maybe help you bring this in a class or something to Truckee. So
yeah, and I'm working with 2 maker
spaces
spaces right now to do that very thing of like, it takes a couple of machines as long as they meet fire code, and you can have a basic checklist, but that's any of the things. So if you're and we stick to, hey, you want to build a house in a few years, you have the land, you need certain skills, that's a set of trades, right? But at the same time, you could say, hey, there's a carpentry class, it's there. So then you meet carpenters, and then you ask the question of the executive director, hey, do you have plumbing? Do you do HVAC? If you don't, do you have some recommendations? But that's also another trade org that you could go to, any of the associated general contractors, either a union, or you go to your local chapter of the AGC, and they've got plenty of people that you could call up and say like, hey, learning the skill, maybe I do, a 6-month gig with you and it's just paid hourly labor, or maybe you have a class I can take, right? So it starts the train of the curiosity, starts the action.
Yeah, and I think we all need to continue to be curious throughout our lives. Like we've had this conversation with Sunny Strower recently, an endurance athlete, and how it's not the accolades for her. Like she doesn't want to just say I summited this, or I did, ran 100+ miles, whatever. I was the first woman to do that. I did a rod. Like it's about her curiosity of like in herself. Can I do this? Can I physically, mentally do this? That's all it is. It's her own curiosity of why she's diving into this. And that's the same for me of like, okay, can I do this myself? That's my curiosity. And I think if we use our curiosity, then it comes from a more like authentic and true place. And we're really, truly finding like, is this something we're passionate about? Something we really want to do for ourselves and not for anybody else? So like, let yourself be curious. Feed into that curiosity. Like things get boring when we stop being curious. I feel like we get stagnant, we get complacent, and it can be easy. Yeah, we go through phases of life that you don't have the time to be curious. You don't have the time to figure out something new, and that's okay. But like, don't push it down forever. Get through whatever you need to in life, and then come back to that curiosity like when you can. Before we get out of here, because I know we've been on for almost an hour now, so I don't want to keep too much of your time. But I did want to talk about what you're doing with Osprey, because again, like I said, we had Lydia on last week and talked about Osprey. And so I want to talk about that intersection with what you're doing with them, as Osprey is entertainment, sports. They represent a lot of different women, but I'd like to know what your role from your side is in it all.
Yeah, I have joined on as partnerships to see where it's funny because how I met Lydia was through Dr. Jen Welter, who is one of the first, if not the first, female coach in the NFL. She was a speaker for a former company that I worked with, and she's so profound, and she's so committed to what she's doing and does not derail. I mean, it's like, I'm going to make this happen, and it's not going to just be on this one thing that I'm known for. And so I found out about Osprey, and I was like, wow, as a former woman in sports, D1 athlete, and then doing all this crazy climbing and running and Ironmans and all the thing, I know in trades that all the women that are in trades, and I'm generalizing, but I think it's something crazy like 85% of women in trades leadership all played a sport. Like played a sport. They were, I mean, like D4 to D1 athletes in college. Just it's that cleaner, faster, stronger, better. It's this intersectionality of like when you're in male-dominated industries or underrepresented, 9 times out of 10, they also played sports because there was that level of like just to what you just said about Sunny, stick-to-itiveness, massive goal, trying to make a difference, have to be a team mentality, but still push yourself and just get into that positive abundance over scarcity and just get back in the arena, get back in the arena. And I started making these connections and talking to more and more women who were like, oh my gosh, I was an athlete, you know, and all of that harkens into what I do today to help me succeed. And I'll put the blinders on sometimes when I need them. And then when I started talking to men, they're like, oh, we hire athletes. You know, in manufacturing, they're like 9 times out of 10, we're looking for that athlete when we go college recruiting. And I'm like, but why aren't you hiring the women? Because 9 times out of 10, they're going to the construction management program. And that's 24 out of 25 are white males in the classroom. So you're not seeing the diversity represented necessarily. And you're certainly not seeing the women. So they're all fighting over the one woman in the class. So I'm like, expand your world. And so that's kind of where I am right now. It's getting comfortable in the uncomfortable where people are like, I don't understand this, like women's sports, but your trades. And I'm like, I'm trying to connect you to this recruiting population that you're already doing, but you're doing it with men. Like, why aren't you doing it with women? Because we have all these athletes that are coming out and trying to transition into careers. They're trying to keep their brand alive because they have this star power of millions of followers. And if they don't go on the speaker circuit or do this Nike brand deal, which is only 1% of the women athletes, and good for them, there's 99% other women out there. They're already sometimes finding manufacturing and trades and STEM-based careers. Why aren't we putting this together more? And so that's really where it started with me is like, I have this shirt that says hashtag everyone watches women welding that I will wear for my next TEDx because it's part of what I'm speaking on is why aren't we connecting this opportunistic pieces of where women are underrepresented or need more voice and putting them together and saying like, why aren't we working together? This is crazy not to. So yeah, it's, and I love the community already. Like these athletes are like, go for broke. These women are creating companies that will just stagger your mind of what the possibility is. It's always giving back in some capacity to women. And then again, like using their influence to say, what's next? You know, how can we build wealth for other women? So it's super inspiring to be a part of that. And just to keep connecting these two worlds has been fun so far. And we're only just getting started.
I love it. And I just absolutely love the idea of just connecting different worlds. Again, another mission that we're trying to do here is like connect the dots because we're multifaceted. We don't need to be just like put in one bucket. We can do tons of different things. And again, I feel like it's something like a lot of men don't put themselves in one bucket. Like we can be athletes, we can be corporate women, we can be tradeswomen, we can be all of them in one. And I just feel so passionate about sports and girls and women like playing sports and being involved in sports. And there's a huge drop off of girls playing sports like once they get to junior high and especially high school because of different societal pressures that, and yeah, you find different interests and whatnot, but a lot of it is just more of like they don't feel like they belong there. They want to, look the part of a different type of girl or something. And if we can keep our girls active in sports, I feel like there's just so many life lessons in individual sports or team sports, whatever it is, just being active. It teaches you such mental like toughness and adversity that I think it's important for all kids. I think they should all play some kind of sport or be involved in a team. They might not be athletic, right? But there's other ways they can be involved in clubs or teams and just learning to work as a team, because even if you're out there being an entrepreneur or something, eventually you got to learn how to work with other people or talk with other people. And I just think that sports and clubs and teams can teach you so much as a young child, and trying to keep our especially girls involved in those things is hugely, hugely important to me. And like you mentioned, when you go out into the world, like looking at the hires of the women who were hired, and like they have this background of being an athlete because like of the things that it can teach you. So let's get our girls out there, keep pushing them to do whatever it is they want to do, and know that there's many paths for them. And there's people like you out there trying to connect these dots and connect these different worlds together so that they do have a place when they are coming out of one world and need to now enter into a different place. And it won't feel so lonely for them or so isolating. And there's going to be a way, there's going to be a path. And I can't wait to hear your next TEDx talk. When is that happening?
That is in April in Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, we'll let you know. There'll be a live stream for sure. So yeah, I'm excited because it's an evolution. I've been on a TED stage for. I'm also a speaker coach. So I'm coaching TEDx Main Street right now for a second year. I love to give back like that, but it's only with the biggest ideas to get on those stages. And so it's not. I tell people this all the time, like, don't get on or go audition just to do a bucket list. I mean, it's got to be something that's in here that you have to get out there. And so connecting these dots and really telling the story of how these connect is really important to me right now, because people do kind of like the light bulb will go on of like, oh yeah, everything you just said about the leadership qualities, but then also how it can transfer into not just trades, but a lot of different industries that are underrepresented right now. Like, why aren't we hiring the female athletes? Why not? Like, this doesn't make sense.
I just love all of it. I am amped for the rest of my day. I'm happy it's early here because this is just what's starting my day and just motivates me to like continue to kind of do what I'm doing on my end of life. Before we get out of here, though, I want to make sure that we've covered anything that you want to. If there's anything else you want to mention to the people, and including like where to find you and whatnot, you all know that the links and all that will be in the show notes. But yeah, I just want to give you the chance to add anything else that you want to leave our audience with.
Yeah, I would say just keep being curious, ruggedly curious, whatever that's outdoors, sports, getting into trades or things that at the end of the day, I say this to myself, even at 48 years old, newly minted 48 a couple of weeks ago, Capricorn right here, is like, if I'm uncomfortable, I'm going in the right direction. So like, just don't be afraid to sit. Like, I'm one of those people that like, no, I want to be positive Polly and like make it comfortable or make it like okay. And I'm learning. It's taking me this long to say, like, when I'm in the uncomfortable and I don't know the outcome or I don't know what the next step is, I can't masterclass that. I can't plan it. But I know that the universe is telling me, like, when you can stay there, like, it's coming. It's coming. You're so on the precipice of that tipping point. So I can't say that enough, especially to women. And then, yeah, reach out to me. I'm always a resource, whether I'm the person that is a subject matter expert or I can, connect you to someone else. Find me on LinkedIn at Demi Knight Clark. I'm super strong with connections there, as well as really Instagram at Girl Friday's Garage.
Love it. And that is how I found you, got connected with you, was LinkedIn from Sarah of Dovetail. So again, got to shout Dovetail out for that. Yeah, because you all know too, I'm a huge Dovetail fan, love my Dovetail. So it was, it felt like one of those connections that just had to happen. And I'm so happy that we were able to connect and chat. And I sure hope that we get to again and kind of dive into one of these subjects a little more in depth, because you're just a wealth of knowledge and inspiration, Demi. And I can't thank you enough for talking with us today and kind of sharing that all with our audience.
Yeah. And thanks for telling the stories. Keep doing it and don't niche down.
Yes, thank you. All right, everybody out there, thanks so much for joining us. Check the show notes to find and connect with Demi and listen to her TEDx talk, and get out there and stay curious, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and would do us a huge favor, since we don't have any sponsors or anything like that, and would rate and review us on whatever platform it is you use, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, whatever it is. And if you're listening and downloading just through the website, tearingituppodcast.com, leave comments. We'll definitely engage back with you. And on social media right now, we're just on Instagram. Tearing It Up Podcast is the handle. Like the post, share the post, comment on the post, whatever it is you got. Show us your love so we just stay relevant and show up in the rankings at all. So again, rate and review, please, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.